I very much like VR. Well, as a consumer at least. As a developer, meh. In the early days, we signed up for the Oculus Rift development kit, and it made us very sick, but it was already very clear that the tech was getting close to actually working, and the level of immersion was insane. Now, years later, I have worked with the HTC 5, the Pico 4, the Quest 2, and now with the Quest 3. And with every hardware iteration, I get less motion sickness, the immersion gets better, and the visual fidelity of the games get higher and higher. But there's still this one thing that really irks me about VR, and that is that I have a growing distaste for developing games for it. Now, if I like VR so much, why would I dislike developing games for it? Well, let me show you how developing a game for VR actually looks like. For the past 2 months, apart from Cyberdam, I've also been working on a VR project. And every time I put on the VR headset, there's this 1 millisecond stutter, where the headset is either coming out of whatever kind of sleep mode they have, or regaining its tracking, or stabilizing the 3D imagery, or it's in the middle of AR to VR transition. I don't know. When you're a consumer, this is fine because how often do you actually toggle between putting on and putting off the headset? As a developer, while testing certain features, I've had days where I had to put on the headset hundreds of times a day with that small stutter happening every bloody time. And then noticing that for some reason the build I just installed on it didn't actually override the previous build, because you actually need to manually close the previous build before installing a new one, which I forget 50% of the time. It's a recipe for a massive headache, motion sickness, all while on a very strict deadline. And then there's this horrible cable, which is already horrible enough for consumers that do not have some kind of cable support in their man caves, but it's really hell on earth for developers. The times this cable got stuck somewhere in the armrests or wheels of my chair, it violently pulling the Quest 3 off my desk when I get up in a desperate moment of needing some fresh air and having to fling myself in an almost hero-like slow motion action to save the €500 headset that is not actually mine, all while being nauseated from early motion sickness. And having to sit inside this red-blue boundary line all the time, because Meta hasn't allowed developers to turn off the safety boundaries for developers. Well, actually, they do. You can disable the boundaries as a developer, but it also disables every and all motion tracking. Useless! So I can either include my desk inside the safe walking zone and violently bash into my desk every time I get immersed into my project, or sit inside the boundary lines every time I quickly want to test something. Ugh, alright. It may sound like these are all just small things and I should just really stop whining. And yes, you are right. They are all actually not very big issues. But after 2 months of developing a game for VR, I'm very glad that I don't have to put on a VR headset for a while. But I think this is such a waste, because I have seriously loved playing Half-Life Alyx. Every minute of it, actually. And I've put in so many hours of Beat Saber. I even was such a VR fanboy that I bought a VR treadmill for my Alter Ego Games office a few years ago. And I didn't really use it a lot because I had to travel to my office to be able to play on it. And well, to be fair, the first Cat VR treadmill wasn't very good in my opinion, but it was really epic playing Half-Life Alyx on it though. having to physically run away from super scary combined super soldiers in pure panic while lobbing grenades over your head behind you, hoping to somehow kill them. Or no, no, it's still too soon. I can't talk about Jeff yet. Sorry, no Jeff. And I have super high hopes for the Apple Vision Pro. And I still have, as I haven't had the opportunity to throw away €4,000 to get one shipped from the US to the Netherlands, and probably never will, as €4,000 is way too much money for a VR headset that I just claimed I would never want to put on again. But from what I hear, it's just as limited, sickening, and physically difficult to develop for as any other VR headset out there. But maybe, just maybe, Apple did as Apple does best, and they made the experience of putting on the headset a bit smoother and remove the 1 second stutter. But still, they don't sell them in the Netherlands, so I'm still not going to throw away €4,000 on a gadget that I'm probably not going to use a lot. In this latest VR project's development, I did find a few tips and tricks to make things easier for development in VR. My biggest help, and this may sound really stupid, is to just keep a window open at all times, even if it's cold. For some reason, having the constant fresh breeze, it made me able to work on VR and have the headset on for a lot longer duration of time. And it actually helped me make my deadlines. And another thing that really helped a lot is to build the project in such a way that you can easily test the whole project inside the Unity editor. A lot of gameplay I actually didn't need to test in VR because I was able to fully play my game with mouse and keyboard. It sounds very obvious, but it often costs quite a bit of time to make a game for VR and make all the interactions work both in VR with your hand tracking or controller tracking and with mouse and keyboard. So I bet you already are using this tip, but if you aren't, take the time to do it, because it ended up saving me a lot of time and even more headaches and nausea. And I'd really like to hear if other VR developers have found different tips and tricks to make the development for VR even easier. And well, maybe you didn't even have the issues that I am having because I'm just more susceptible to motion sickness and headaches. I don't know. But if you had, please let us poor developers know in the comments. For now, I am done with VR. But knowing myself, I'll just forget my dislike for VR. And within a few months, I get back to some epic Beat Sabering. Thank you for watching this video. Please click some buttons you want to below, and I hope to see you next week.